This presentation, based on my recent fieldwork conducted with Portuguese women aged between 30 and 50, explores the ideal of perfect skin as a specific form of bioinvestment to demarcate symbolic boundaries and to highlight class distinctions. Focusing on what people say a perfect beauty should like, in the first place, I claim to display how beauty ideas and cosmetic procedures are not only deeply gendered and classed, but also racialized and racializing. Secondly, considering beauty as a broad project stably under construction, I explore specifically the imaginaries and the desires of Portuguese women as a way to adaptation to local and global circuits of representation. In the last 3 years, I have explored specifically the aesthetic labor of immigrants and Afro-European women in Portugal, observing the relation between consumption practices and aspirations of inclusion, something that Álvaro Jarrín defines as aesthetic economies. I've conducted research on the emergence in Lisbon of a new market of illegal skin bleaching cosmetic products with high concentrations of very dangerous substances, such as mercury. These products are economical and easily available at various hotspots in the city center, in grocery stores, in shopping malls, in African, Chinese, and Indian beauty salons. The paper I am presenting today, based on my new fieldwork in the high perfumeries in Lisbon and on the most famous cosmetic product brands, will highlight that also women who perceive and define themselves as white enact or perform an ideal whiteness with stylization technologies. The activist Marcia N. Gillespie, who in her essay Mirror analyzes the Euro-American narrative that constructs the white ideal of beauty as hegemonic, states that our Eurocentric magic mirror continues to proclaim that Snow White is indeed the fairest in all the land. The results of my interviews don't seem to contradict Gillespie's conclusions. In responding to the challenge of stating a personal ideal of feminine beauty, the results of the first survey evince a collective imaginary of a fine, light-skinned, elegant, and classy woman. Highlights include Kristen James Stewart, Kate Blanchett, Charlize Theron, Gwyneth Paltrow, Emma Watson. Aesthetically beautiful does not correspond, however, to sexually attractive. These elegant women are something to be admired, not someone who is sexually desirable. They are untouchable, something only to be gazed upon, classy, but not sexy. When by contrast we ask which women better represent icon of sensuality, the profile changes considerably. Here the highlights are Jennifer Lopez, Beyoncé, Rihanna, Penelope Cruz, Shakira, and Kim Kardashian. When directly questioned in the interviews about black beauties, the choices fall almost exclusively on very whitewashed women. In the few answers that mention less vanilla women such as Grace Jones, Naomi Campbell, or Lupita Nyong'o, their beauty is immediately animalized. The former are panthers of tigresses, the latter gazelles of giraffes. Establishing alternative femininities implies that there is a standard model of beauty from which anything else is a deviation. As the philosopher Sally Markowitz claims, the femininity of not white women, far from being heightened, is likely to be denied. It is not difficult, after all, to find a pronounced racial component to the idea of femininity itself. To be truly feminine is in many ways to be white. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? Most of the time, when the question is raised from a black girl, the answer is, isn't you? Snow White continues to reign, and the other women can be only the sexy witches. Through the presence of racialized canons is clear in the interviews, underpinning the entire discourse, the racial question is completely silenced. The ideal femininity appears as a depoliticized, race-neutral model. White remains the erased norm against which all difference is measured. Even if the racial question is never openly addressed, the topic of European beauty and European body emerge as a central issue in almost all my interviews. We're obviously not talking about a real body, but rather representations and fantasies of Europeanness constantly reproduced in order to consolidate borders and exclude otherness. Speaking of Portugal, as an European white nation, despite decades of immigration, despite the complexity of colonial and post-colonial relations, and despite of the presence of Afro-Portuguese or Indian Portuguese citizens, my interviewees sustained that in the old days we had that pattern of beauty, the elegant European woman, but today that is changing. We have so many influences, it is almost an aggression, and that way we lose the European style that distinguished us. Brazilian, African, and Russian women arrived. We have lost our European references. Bad taste is now entrenched in Portugal. The contrast manifested in my interviews between, on the one hand, the paradigm of good taste, elegance, and sobriety in defining the Portuguese ideal of beauty, and on the other hand, the influences that come from abroad, is a theme that instinctively reappears in every interview. Like a virus penetrating and invading the permeable European body, these models have contaminated the taste of Portuguese people, infecting them with flashiness. Portuguese women had very good taste, like French women. We had the classical European beauty. Brazilian and African women have an exaggerated visual. Russian women are closer to the typical blonde beauty model, but they too are very loose, very hard-working in sexuality and beauty. It's not that it's right or wrong, but please, not in a real lady. Oh, sorry, it's not about you, of course. It's obviously you are classy and totally European. As we well know, the interactions between researcher and research participants cannot produce neutral data. The color of my skin, eyes, and hair, and my facial features are immediately associated in Portugal with the phenotype of Western Europe. This connection places me in the stereotypical category of Russian women. While it is an aesthetically appreciated phenotype, however, Eastern women are often associated with sex work and considered, at least in popular imagination, as having a corrupting influence on Western morals. My appearance pushed me into a kind of phantasmal sphere of second-class citizenship. Another important topic is the class and status distinction. The upper-class woman has all the characteristics of elegance and of the European style. In lower classes, the reference models come from outside. The beauty standards in my interviewees converge with genderism, classism, and racism in ways that select certain bodies as sloppy, ordinary, working class, marginal, suburban, as well as giving them a misleading positive value, the exoticized, eroticized, and hypersexualized body. Higher classes in Africa and Brazil want to appear European with super fair, perfect white skin without even a tiny blemish. Being very tanned today doesn't work. Cultured women, those that know the world, that are informed, know perfectly well that what damage the sun causes. A perfect fair complexion is a classic sign of high social status. Several authors question the impact of European beauty standards in different countries in Africa, Asia, or South America. However, the way race shapes the body also of European women who identify themselves as white has not been a major focus of anthropological research. The cultural discourse that Katie Deliovsky calls normative white femininity is rarely analyzed in relation to bodies that are generally perceived as white. Lightening and depigmenting skin products are sold in every perfumery, drugstores, or pharmacy in Southern European countries like Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. Stereotypically perceived by the Central and Northern European gaze as warty bronze looking, tanned, or with olive skin, a mixture of Arabs, Middle Eastern, or North Africans, the pigs are somewhat exotic and outside of European standard. Pigs are lazy and untrustworthy people who waste money on wine and women. As stated 2 years ago, Joran Jalbersblom, the chairman of Eurogroup, echoing long-standing colonial ideologies, pigs are characterized as unprofessional, corrupt, too emotional, temperamental, hot, and sensual Latin lovers, more instinctive and warm than the rest of Europe. In short, a kind of second-class European citizens. Those are not able to keep up with their more sophisticated and beauty northern neighbors. This imaginary that continues to shape European everyday realities is based on a silent but powerful discourse on European cultural hierarchies that conflate essentialized national representations with lifestyles, class, sexuality, beauty ideas, and skin color. Europeanness is a construction, a work in progress that inheres in subjectivity as well as bodies, social relations, and social activities. It is simultaneously structural and personal. How, for what reasons, and through which stylization practices someone might be fully integrated in the category European, and what are the consequences of being included or not in that category, is a complex historical narrative, intimately connected to the social construction of whiteness. The sociologist Esther Bonnet provides a critical history of the conflection of European and white identities, highlighting that the excessive idealization of this identification is related to the gradual marginalization of less white people through ethnic and class hierarchies. The Portuguese are, without a doubt, the ugliest race in Europe. They are not really like the white men. The Portuguese are descended from a mixture of Jewish, black, and French. For their appearances, they seem to have reserved for the worst part of each of these peoples. You know, there is this idea that Portuguese are the darkest skinned people in Europe. Until recently, Portuguese people were considered as pigs, ugly, dirty, and bad. Portuguese people are very far from my idea of beauty. They are short, stocky, and dark, an unfortunate mixture of races. And Portuguese women were very hairy, with an olive and dark skin. Today, they are finally investing in themselves. They care about the health of our skin. Also, white women are encouraged to correspond to an image of ideal purity that coincides with immaculate, perfect white skin. In Lisbon pharmacies and perfume stores, Products for skin depigmentation are positioned always in the most visibly displays at consumer eye level. A quick look at the names of the products suffices to notice the association of the idea of whiteness to extremely positive elements. White skin is angelical, excellent, classy, divine, prestigious, special, better, pure, and so on. The elements associated with white skin are quite precious and or pure, such as bridal dress, no diamonds, pearls, porcelains. These cosmetics products are at once racially labeled, racialized, and racializing. These idealized representations of an European aesthetic model evoking the virtue, chastity, honor, purity, and elegance of the European lady, honest bride, and angel of the house, classifies bodies creating not only a color line between the civilized Europe and the rest, but also hierarchizing the population within Europe. In this sense, whiteness is, any right close argument, a racialized construction even for white women, who are compelled to adopt a whiteified style current with an imposed middle class cisgender feminine aesthetic through a specific appearance investment literally called by Elizabeth Wissinger the European beauty label. Thank you so much.